Okay, so yes, settle down onto your back and just have a couple of big sighing breaths once you're lying on your back, so you can just feel that you've arrived. You can feel the ground beneath you, and we're going to focus quite a lot on twisting movements today, which I thought would be nice if we're feeling a bit creaky on a Monday morning. And so we'll start with a few familiar sort of twisty things on our backs before we come into other positions. So what I'd like you to do to start with is to feel the weight of your head on the floor. And then you can start our twisting today by letting your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. So when we're thinking about twisting in yoga, it's very much about the vertebrae, the individual vertebrae rotating on each other. So if we let our head roll a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left, then we're starting to find this movement, this twisting movement in our neck. And also, perhaps we might feel that the movement travels down our spine a little bit into the upper back. May or may not. So once or twice more, just let your head roll to the right and to the left. And from letting your head ease from side to side, then find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the floor. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And if your legs are long, I'd like you now to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And then just take a moment to feel the back of your pelvis on the ground, to feel the contact of the soles of your feet on the ground. And then start to let your knees tilt a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. So when we start this movement, tilting the knees to the right and to the left, we start to move into rotate the vertebrae down, sort of attached to the bottom ribs. So as the pelvis moves with the legs, we might feel that our low ribs start to come along a little bit with this movement. And also we're easing around the back of the pelvis. So if we're feeling at all creaky around the lower back and pelvis, we're just starting to bring a bit of movement into that area. Okay, so perhaps just once, twice more with the knees side to side. And then you're going to settle in the center, and we're going to do a movement for the upper back. So you can lengthen your legs out if you like, or if you keep your knees bent, just try and keep them uninvolved in the movement. So you're going to bring your arms up towards the ceiling, and you're going to make a big O shape, a big circular shape with your arms. So interlink your fingers. Yeah, so that's it. So maybe interlink the fingers a bit rather than touching the tips of the fingers together. Good. And then start to, with your O shape, so as if you're holding a big beach ball on your chest, start to rock to the right and to the left. Good. Let your head move with your arms. That looks very nice. Wonderful. Yeah, very well done, keeping your circles circular. Rocking across your upper back and just seeing how this feels. So we get a sense of how are we feeling in this sort of upper, mid-upper part of the spine between the shoulder blades. So this is often where we can feel quite tight, particularly if we're working from home on the computer or laptop a lot. Good. So perhaps just a couple more times. Yeah, that looks so brilliant. Well done. A couple more times, and then release your arms and let them come to rest on the floor. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then if your legs are long, bend your knees again, stand your feet on the floor, and come back a few times to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And see how that feels. So as we start to undo the vertebrae a little bit in the upper back, then it can start to feel a bit easier to let the knees tilt from side to side. Doesn't mean that we necessarily go further, but the whole movement might just start to feel a bit more fluid. That's nice. Okay, and then we can pause in the center again. We can either lengthen the legs out or keep the knees bent. And we're going to come back to another movement for the upper body. So this time, Addie, to your right, you're going to bring your arms up and make a triangle with your arms over your chest. So touching your palms together in prayer pose, keeping your hands stuck together, keeping your elbows straight, start to rock your triangle to the right and to the left. And let your head again come along. Good, but not your legs. Yeah, so Helen, see if your legs can stay a little bit more uninvolved. Yeah, so lengthen them out is often a good idea. And again, the same thing, try not to let your elbows bend. Yeah, the elbows need to stay straight. The hands need to stay stuck together. So your triangle stays triangular as you go from side to side. And this means that we're really then locating the movement in the vertebrae of the upper back. That's nice, good. A few more times, side to side. Now, I often find this one is a bit more intense, yeah? It's sort of, yeah, sometimes edges onto being slightly painful if my upper back is feeling tight. So it can be a smaller movement if that's the case. You want to, it's really important with these movements, we keep them comfortable so that we enjoy them. And then our body responds. Good. Why don't you let your arms go? Bend your knees again if your legs are long. Rest your arms on the ground beside you. Come back once more to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. Yeah, lovely. Very, very nice. Good. Okay, because I don't want to keep you lying down too long, just pause in the center. Keep your knees bent and then cross your arms over your chest. So we'll now do the one where we let the elbows and the knees and the head all rock in the same direction. So when your arms are crossed over your chest. So this is a bit less of a twist and a bit more that we're rocking side to side across the back of our body. But it can still feel that we're giving, this really nice movement, easing out tension. Good. So do a little bit of rocking side to side. To the right, to the left. And then what you can do is you can rock all the way onto one side, whichever side you like, and then we will come over onto hands and knees. Good. And so arrive on hands and knees, and we're going to start with some cat movements on hands and knees. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine to the floor. So we're moving away for the moment from our rotation movements, coming to feeling that we're lengthening out through the front of the body when we dip our spine to the floor, and we're lengthening out through the back of the body when we round our back to the ceiling. Good. And we're going to, in a moment, so a couple more times, rounding and dipping. But then I'd like us to add in some rocking back as well. So you're going to be rounding your back to the ceiling. I'd have your feet flat if that feels okay. So round your back to the ceiling, stay rounded, rock all the way back with your hips, but keep your elbows off the floor. And then as you come forwards again, let your spine dip down a bit. Yeah? So round your back to the ceiling, look back behind you, rock your hips back over your heels, but keep your hands planted. And then let your spine dip down. When you're coming forwards and dipping your spine down, you might bend your elbows a little bit. So you don't have to bend them loads. So round up, rock back, and then let your spine dip down a little bit as you come back onto hands and knees. And so just carry on with this sort of circling movement. Yeah, it's almost like we're drawing a sort of circle with our spine. So rounding our back to the ceiling, rocking our hips back over our heels, and then dipping the spine down to come forwards again. Let's just do that perhaps 2 or 3 more times. Rounding up, rocking back, dipping down, coming forwards. Make sure you're breathing. You can just let your breath flow through you as it wants to. And then Either this time when you round up or the next time, you're going to rock all the way back into child pose for a couple of breaths. Okay, so round your back, rock your hips back over your heels, and then this time let your elbows come down towards the ground. And your forehead may or may not touch the ground. Good. And just have a couple of breaths in child pose. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Just make sure you've taken the weight off your hands and your wrists for a moment. And then we're going to come on and have a little lengthen out in dog pose, just again, so we keep moving on this rather wintry day. So coming onto hands and knees, tucking your toes under. As you exhale, you can rock your hips back over your heels, pick your knees up off the ground, and see how it feels to arrive in dog pose today. So we can do a little bit of walking on the spot, bending one knee at a time. Very nice. Good. Letting the head go. Lovely. Good. And yes, whenever you're ready to come down from dog, if you're happy in dog, stay a little bit longer. Whenever you're ready to come down in dog, just come into kneeling. You can be sitting down in kneeling or up in kneeling like this, and give your hands a little shake out, because we're going to do a bit more on hands and knees. So either, sit down or up in kneeling. And then we're going to come back onto hands and knees and do a few side bending movements. So the first one we're going to do, we haven't done this one for a while, is where we let one lower leg come out to the side and we look towards that leg, and we repeat the same movement several times on the same side. So we take our lower leg out to the side, we look towards the leg. We look towards the leg. We look towards the leg. That's it. Okay, so this is shortening us through that side of the body. Okay, and then we can do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to turn around, you don't need to. So your lower leg comes out to the side, you look towards your leg. You look towards your leg. Repeat that a couple more times. Okay, the bin lorry's just arrived if the noise suddenly goes bad. Okay, and then you can do the same thing, taking both legs together from side to side. And if you do this slowly, you can look towards your feet. And then if you want to speed it up, so it becomes little fishes, I would then not look towards my feet. So you can then swing your legs from side to side quite rapidly. But personally, I would then not be looking at them. And then let the lower legs rest on the ground and come to your tail wagging movement, where we're doing a very similar movement with the pelvis, but we're not moving the legs. So can we do our tail wagging movement, where we move the pelvis side to side and we feel one side of the body is shortening, one side is lengthening out. Okay. And then maybe for a moment, just sit back over your heels again, give your hands a shake out, and we'll come into another dog pose and have a bit of a lengthen out there. So shake the hands out, and then nice big handprints on the floor. Tuck your toes under. As you exhale, rock your hips back over your heels, pick your knees up off the floor. Seeing how your second dog pose feels. And again, of course, bending your knees one at a time, both together as much as possible. And as much as possible, trying to feel that, it looks really nice in the shoulders, that we're undone between the shoulders. If our shoulders are feeling tight today, because of the cold, because of whatever's going on, take your hands wider apart. That's it. Brilliant, really, really nice. And then from dog pose, whenever you want to, just fold down into child pose or kneeling for a couple of quiet breaths. So feel the movement of your breath in your body in child pose or kneeling. Feel the breath come in, feel the breath leaving you. And then we're going to come back now to some more twisting movements. So we're going to, from hands and knees, do a couple of variations of the, sort of thread the needle movement. So this is one that very kindly Rosie shared ages ago, which I really like. So we're going to be moving it in and out of it. So we're going to be taking one arm up, and then this arm swoops underneath. And we're going to do this 3 times, okay? So we can come up with one arm, we can look up towards our fingers, and then we follow our fingers as they go through. The 3rd time we come into this movement, we'll stay. And if, like me, even counting to 3 is a bit of a struggle, then what you think is 3, and then stay for a few breaths. That's it, in the twist. And just particularly seeing how does that feel in your shoulders and upper back. Yeah, very nice, beautiful, Nigel, lovely. Good, so staying for a couple of breaths in the twist. Good. And then you can come back to the center, and we can do the same thing on the other side. So 3 times we can follow our fingers with our eyes, taking our arms up and out, and then swooping down, sliding our hand underneath, and then coming out again. And just making sure in these movements that whatever you're doing feels comfortable for your shoulders and your neck. Yeah, so when you've done that 3 times, probably like me, you've lost count, then stay for a couple of breaths in the rotation. Because when we stay there and breathe, that's when we really start to move a little bit through the upper back. Good. Very nice. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. You can come back out when you're ready. We're going to come into dog pose, and then we're going to do a different variation of this twist. So come back onto hands and knees, plant both hands on the floor. Remember, if your shoulders are tight, take your hands wide apart. Tuck your toes under, exhale, rock your hips back into dog, up and back into dog. And I always find after these twisty ones on hands and knees that it's nice to come into dog and just feel very sort of balanced and settled, and yeah, lovely. Long straight spine, letting the head go. That's nice with the shoulders added to you. Well done. Good. So when you come back down, I'm sure you'll all remember this variation. I might just show you first of all. So the variation we're going to do is sliding one arm under, and then remember you bring your leg out to the side and you point your toes towards you, and then this top arm can come up or it can come back onto the back of your pelvis. Okay, so this maybe just takes it a little bit further in the upper back. And this leg is acting as a counterbalance to stop you wobbling around. So one arm's going to slide under. Good, that's the first thing. Then your leg comes out to the side, and we're trying to sort of come onto the underside of our toes, send our heel away from us. And if we really stretch the heel away from us, we can take our top arm up and let the top arm fall back behind us, or bring that hand onto the back of your pelvis. And just make sure that your neck feels okay in this, because neck comes into a bit of a side bend here, and that the bottom shoulder is okay. Good. Good. But this can feel like a really, quite strong twist through the spine. Quite helpful movements there. And then we come down by bringing our hand down, bringing our knee down to the floor, coming back to the center. It's one of those sort of poses where we get very confused where we are in space. So then we try the other side. So slide the other arm under. I've turned around on my mat. You don't need to. Bring your leg out to the side, tuck your toes under, send your heel away from you. And then if you're really stretching your heel away from you, you can bring your top arm up Let the arm fall back behind you. You can also try bringing your hand onto the back of your pelvis, see which you prefer. You might like your arm, that's it, up, and have a couple of breaths there. I always need to come out of those a little bit slowly so I don't feel too dizzy. Good, very nice. And then finally, when you've come out, one more time coming into dog pose. So we just come into that very sort of familiar shape of dog pose where we know where we are. Bend the knees as much as you like, but see if you can be in dog pose in a sort of quiet, settled way. That's nice. Where we can very clearly feel where our body is. We can feel where the ground is. It's not confusing. Good. Lovely. And then from this dog pose, you're going to be walking your hands in towards your feet and coming up into standing. Or coming into a forward bend, first of all. And then we'll be coming up into standing. So you can arrive in a forward bend. If it's helpful to bend your knees and rest your elbows on your thighs, you can do. Let your head go and feel all of the weight in your feet. And then yes, whenever you're ready, you can start to walk your hands up your thighs or sink into your heels and roll up into standing. So we'll arrive in standing on our mats. I'm just check how I'm doing timing wise. Good. So in standing, we'll start with this sort of loose, easy swinging twist as we're working with twists today. Let's do this one. So this, as you know, is where all of us is moving. So not that intense focus on our upper back. And we're going to do some different twists in standing and a few other things as well. A bit more side bending too. Good, very nice. Just keep ourselves moving and active on this cold day. Good. I'm going to balance as well. A couple of balances even. Great. So let's let that go. Let's settle our feet down a little distance apart. And let a breath come in and bring our arms up. And just do a little bit of this reaching up into one arm and then the other. So feeling long through the side of the body. And so as you reach up, you can shift your weight, if you like, into the reaching leg side. Good. Yes, and you can, like you're doing, Sheila, by all means, you can take one arm up and then the other arm down. That's really nice. Sometimes it's not nice staying with both arms up. So that's it. A couple more times reaching and then release. That's it. Release your arms. Give them a little shake out, maybe a little swing from side to side. And we'll take the arms back up again. And this time we'll catch one hand around the other wrist and use our arm to sort of draw ourselves up. So swing your arms up. So I'm going to reach up into my right arm, catch my left hand around my right wrist, and then I'm sort of drawing myself up and over to the left. Feeling long through the right side of my body. And I'm going to come back to the center and I'm going to swap sides. So reach up through the left, catch my right hand around my left wrist. Good. And again, long through the side of the body. Lovely. And then when you release your arms, let yourself come all the way down into a forward bend. You might want to rest your elbows on your thighs. Let your head go. And you can release your head and your arms down to the ground. Big exhalation. Let the head go. Good. Very nice. It's been nice and floppy in your forward bend. And then on your next exhalation, let's sink into the heels and roll back up into standing or walk your hands up the fronts of your legs. And then we'll take our feet a bit wider apart on the mat. So this could be as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. That's it. If you're facing the short edge of your mat, you could take your feet that wide. And we'll come into these side lengthening movements where one arm comes up, the other arm is heavy and floppy, And we can be shifting our pelvis again towards the raised arm side, if we like. Good. And I always vary these. So generally, it's quite nice to move in and out of them, particularly, I think, in a day like today, where we need to stay moving. But it might be that you want to stay on one side and have a couple of breaths there. And always give away that bottom arm, so that bottom arm stays heavy and floppy in contrast with the top arm. Good. Just stay here. Just stay here. We won't just stay here doing this. We are going to come into a forward bend now with our feet this wide apart. And you could do a little bit of bending one knee, bending the other. So from here, sink into your heels, fold forwards. Again, you can bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs. See how it feels to come into a forward bend with your feet this distance apart. And then, if you like, you can have a little play around with bending one knee, bending the other knee. Make sure your knees are happy with that. Mine sometimes get a bit grumbly. Yes, and as you know, we do this one sometimes, and there's these different ways we can bend our knees and sort of swing our pelvis from side to side, which can feel really nice. That's a big movement. And we can also bend our knees and not move the pelvis so much. The pelvis just tilts a bit from side to side. So maybe explore those two possibilities of swinging your pelvis and of not swinging your pelvis. And also just let yourself flop in the center for a moment in a forward bend where both knees are bent or both knees are straight. Or both knees doing the same thing. And then sink into your heels, roll up into standing. When you arrive in standing, just have a little shake out of your legs. And we're going to go back into that position. Just before we do, I'm just going to show you. I think you all know this one. We're going to come back into that position where the feet are a little distance apart. We're going to bend one knee. Our fingertips stay on the floor in the center, and we turn towards the straight leg. Yeah. And then we go from side to side 2 or 3 times in this one. So you've got your feet that's sort of as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. You're coming forwards. And then we're bending one knee and we're turning away from the bent knee. We can take our arm up if we like. Yeah, good. That's very nice. Good. So yes, I would have your fingertips when you're turning. It's nice to have your fingertips in the center. So Sheila, you could move your finger, the bottom fingers into the center. So does that make sense? That's it, yes. Because as we turn, we're sort of trying to sort of turn on this sort of central axes for our spine. Okay. Good. I always find this one's quite a nice movement for the upper back. So yeah, 2 or 3 times turning towards the bent knee. Or if both knees are bent, the knee that's more bent. Good. That's really nice. Lovely. Yes, that's very nice, Elaine. Taking the arm up as the last thing is really good, to turn and then take the arm up. And then again, you might want to just let yourself flop forwards in the center with both knees doing the same thing. So both knees a little bit bent or both knees straightish, letting your spine tumble forwards before sinking into your heels and coming back up into standing. And again, give your feet a little bit of a shake out. So now we're going to come back to our feet being a little distance apart. But I'd like you to have a little bit of space on your mat so you can step forwards. So we're going to step forwards with one foot and do a little bit of shifting our weight forwards and back. Good. Just letting the arms be nice and heavy and relaxed. And so this, well, I always find quite settling feeling of rocking our weight forwards and back, really feeling our feet on the floor. And we're going to do a couple of different twists from this position. So from shifting your weight forwards and back, eventually let both feet settle down. Make sure that you've still got your little sideways distance, so we're not teetering like we're on a tightrope. Good. And then the first thing I'd like you to do is try to keep your pelvis where it is and just swing your arms and turn from the waist up in a very easy way. So we're swinging our arms and we're turning our shoulders and head a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. Knees straight but not locked. Yeah, that's always quite hard sometimes to keep our knees straight but not locking them. So if there's any doubt, it's better to keep them a bit bent. I'm going to turn around on the mat, and you'll see why in a moment, because we're going to start by doing a little twist where we turn towards our front leg. So you're going to bring your hands into prayer pose at your heart and keep your thumbs on your breastbone. And then as you exhale, you're going to start turning towards your front leg. But again, you're trying not to turn below the waist. So it's your shoulders that are turning, good. Your arms sort of stay put, good. So you might feel you don't go very far, but you might feel quite a lot happening in the upper back. So as you exhale, keep turning towards your front leg side. And then when you feel you can't turn any further, on a big exhalation, you're going to take your arms out at shoulder height. And think about, as you've turned, think about where your shoulders are. Good. Can you take your arms, that's it, at shoulder height, maybe a little, I can't quite see, Helen, your arms might need to be a little bit higher up to be shoulder height, or it might just be the angle. Good. Very nice. Let your shoulders drop down. And then come back to the center. Come back to feet side by side. Good. And step your other foot forwards on the ground. And come back to a little bit of rocking forwards and back. Very nice. And again, that feeling that we're just dropping down into our footprints. We can let our busy minds quieten down. We can just feel, if our feet haven't gone too numb from the cold, we can just feel our feet on the ground. And then eventually we'll settle down. Think about the pelvis. You might just feel your pelvis for a moment. Try and leave it there. We can start by just this sort of easy turning. One way and then the other. So trying to turn the shoulders and the head and the swing of the arms. Can we feel? There's this possibility that below the waist we're not moving, but above the waist we could move a bit. So we're really trying to find this movement in the spine, in the ribs. Good. And then the hands come into prayer pose at our heart again. And we keep the thumbs there. And we turn towards our front leg. Trying not to move below the waist. And it might feel that you don't go very far. So try moving as you exhale. Let's make it a little bit easier. As we exhale, the belly empties. Maybe there's a little bit more room for movement. Good. And then when you've turned as far as you can, on a big exhalation, let your arms come down and then out to shoulder height. Drop your shoulders down. Imagine your arms are like wings. Good. Keep steady through your legs. Let a breath come in. Let a breath leave you. Very nice. And then release the arms. Come back. Give your legs a little shake out. We're going to do one more twisting movement with our feet in this position. So come back to feet side by side and then stepping your first foot forwards again. And if you like, a little bit of rocking forwards and back. And in this one, sometimes, because we're going to be bending the front knee and folding forwards, sometimes you might feel that you want a slightly longer step. Particularly if you've got long legs. I mean, I haven't got very long legs, but some of you have. So we're going to be doing this one where we've got the front knee bent, the back leg straight. We're folding forwards. And we're trying to come to a place, it might be your hands on your front thigh or your forearms. Come to a place where our spine is long and straight. And if we're not sure, we could round our back and look back behind us. That's when our back's rounded. Can we flatten out our spine? And we're probably looking straight down at our big toe and our front foot. And then bring your back leg hand onto the back of your pelvis. And again, we're trying to just turn the shoulders and the ribs and the head. This time we're turning towards the back leg. We're trying not to look towards the back leg, otherwise we'll start to curve in the spine. We can release our bottom arm. The fingers could come down to the ankle or the floor, or the arm could just hang. And our top arm could then come up towards the ceiling. So we're trying to feel really open across the front of the chest, yeah? Good, very nice. Have a couple of breaths there if you can. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Feel as steady as you can through your legs. Very nice. Okay, and then you can untwist and flop forwards over your front leg into a forward bend with your front knee bent and your back leg straight. Let your head go. Maybe just one more cycle of breath there. And then sinking into your feet. Come back up into standing. Good. And then have a little shake out of your legs and we will do the other side. So I'll just turn around so I don't turn away from you. So you're going to step the other foot forwards. And again, remember, if you want, and because we're bending that front knee, you might want to have a slightly longer step, if that helps you feel more stable. So the most important things with these is that we're just trying to feel very steady and planted through our legs. So they are a sort of balance. Front knee's bent, back leg is straight but not locked. We're leaning onto that front thigh, either with our forearm or our hands. Can we feel our spine is lengthening and flattening? So it means we're looking straight down at the ground. Lots of distance between the shoulders and the ears. And then we can start to turn towards maybe our back hand on the back of the pelvis, back leg hand on the back of the pelvis, starting to turn to the back leg side. But don't look at your back leg. Look straight forwards. Release your bottom arm to the ground. You can shake that arm out and then maybe rest your fingers on your shin or your ankle or the floor. Maybe the top arm can come up towards the ceiling. Can we feel really wide in the front of the chest? Front of the chest is opening. We're very planted through our legs. Lovely. We're having a couple of breaths here. We're looking straight forwards, which is towards, not ahead of us, not forwards, towards the, we're looking in the direction we're turning towards. It's maybe a better way to put it. Good. Very nice. And then we can untwist and we can flop down over our front leg. Have 2 or 3 breaths here, giving away your head to the floor, but staying very rooted through your heels. And then sink into both footprints and come back up into standing. Good. Yes, and have a shake out here. So I wanted us now to, we've done a bit of twisty things. I wanted us now just to do a little bit of coming into some balancing movements, nothing too scary, I was going to start with at all. The first thing you're going to be doing is the balance where we come up onto both the balls of both feet. So there we go, we've still got 2 feet on the ground. So this is obviously a bit of an exercise for our feet, for the arches of the feet. We're really asking those toes to bend. And as we come up, we're trying to keep the weight sort of spread across the whole of the ball of the foot. Good. And if we feel steady, we're going to then float our arms up. Like me, you might have to come back down again. Steady yourself, and then very nice. Float your arms up. Keep the shoulders soft and quiet. The arms could be quite wide. See if you can have a few breaths here. Keep quiet and soft through the belly and the front ribs. Your gaze is going forwards. Feel the breath flow in, feel the breath flow out. Good. When we come back down, you're going to sweep your arms all the way, heels come down, sweep your arms all the way down into a forward bend. Let the head go. Bend your knees as much as you like. And then sink into your heels and roll back up into standing. So we're going to do a little sequence. So you know this all, but I don't think we've done it for a while. So I might just remind you. We're going to do a little sequence of standing balances where we slide our foot back, we move through tree pose, and then we bend our standing knee and cross the other leg over it. You can have your hands in prayer pose the whole time, or you can bring them into prayer pose for that last little balance, which is, I think, what I'll do. But if you like just having your hands out of the way, you can start with them in prayer pose. So maybe the first thing we should do is decide which foot we're going to stand on. So settle your feet down a little distance apart and close your eyes. And just do a little bit of swaying from side to side. And just get a sense, is there one leg that we feel a bit happier to stand on today? If there isn't, we can just choose one. But yeah, let's be led by what our body would like. So we're going to open our eyes now, and we're going to shift our weight onto whichever foot we've chosen to stand on. And then we're going to start to slide the other foot back behind us so that we can then flip onto the top of the toes. And then we can see what it's like to straighten that back knee, or we can sort of just bounce the toes on the floor. That's probably not with the back knee straight, yeah? Good. And then from there, slide those toes back in, and you're going to come into a little mini tree pose by letting your knee turn out and your foot come onto your ankle. Now you could keep some toes on the floor at this point, and it might well be a nice point here to bring your hands into prayer pose. Good. It's a little mini tree pose for a breath or two. And then from your mini tree pose, bring your toes back onto the floor and bend your standing knee. And you might want to look down a little bit more at this point because that's it's nicer for the knee. And then cross your leg over your bent standing leg. So we're sort of sitting down on our bent standing leg, a bit like it's a little stool. Bar stool. Good. And have a breath or two there. Again, remember, the standing knee can be a lot happier if we look down a bit more rather than forwards here. That's nice. And then come out, have a little shake out, because we do those three balances and we're actually standing on one leg for quite a while. Okay, let's try the other side. So settle back down, both feet side by side. Let your weight come onto the foot we didn't just stand on. Come onto the ball of the other foot and then slide those toes back behind you and flip onto the top of them. Okay. And then at this point, you can either see what it's like to straighten the back knee, or you could just bounce your toes on the ground, sort of tap them on the ground, but not with them straight. Okay. And then from there, we'll slide those toes back in. We'll let the knee come out to the side, and you're going to bring your foot on your ankle, or maybe you've got some toes on the floor, into a little mini tree pose. And it is nice at this point to have the hands to come into prayer pose in front of you. So here, see how it is to have a couple of breaths and of this little mini tree. Good. Very nice. And then we can bring our toes onto the floor. We can let our standing knee bend a little bit. So we've got this feeling of sort of sitting down a bit. And then bringing our gaze down a bit more, we can cross our top leg over and see how it is to have another breath or two here. Good. Fabulous. Really nice. And then you come out. So I was just thinking, it's interesting in that one, because we end up with that bent knee, I think it means we are balanced for a little bit longer. So we sort of change the orientation of the foot. Excellent. We're going to come down, just looking at, yeah, we're going to come down from the back of our mats through forward bend and dog pose. And I think we'll do this with our buzzing breaths. So let's have once we're settled at the back of the mats, let's have a cycle of buzzing breath here, and then we'll have one in each of these positions. So At the back of your mat, you can close your eyes in standing in mountain pose. You might like to sway a little bit from side to side. And then let yourself settle in the center. Let a cycle of breath come in. And then leave you with the buzz. And then let a breath come in, and with your next buzzing breath, we'll use the buzz to take us into a forward bend. And from that forward bend, you're going to walk your hands forwards into dog. And once we arrive in dog, we'll have another cycle of buzzing breath in dog pose. So when you're in dog, bend your knees as much as you like. Let a breath come in. And from dog, fold down into child pose or kneeling, and we'll have one more cycle of buzzing breath when we're sort of just a little bit quieter and close to the ground. So if you're in kneeling, rest your hands on your thighs. If you're in child pose, just settle your elbows on the ground and let a breath come in. And just have a quiet breath or two. Now we're going to, in a moment, come on to our bellies, and I might just show you, I mean, I think this is all familiar to all of us, but I might just show you what we're going to do to remind you, because we're going to, first of all, one arm at a time, we're going to be pressing into our hands and letting our head roll on the floor towards that pressing hand. Yeah, so we'll do that on both sides, and then we'll go from side to side, pressing into one hand. Okay, and then we'll come back into child pose, and then we'll do a bit more. So lie down onto your belly. So these are such nice ones for the upper back. So you're going to lie down onto your belly. You're going to start with, let's have our right hand standing on the floor, and the left arm is down by the side of the body. Okay, so you've got your left arm down by the side of your body. You've got your right hand standing on the floor with your elbow off the floor. And if you can start with your forehead on the ground, that would be quite nice. And then as you exhale, you press into your right hand and your right shoulder lifts and you let your head roll on the floor. So your head needs to stay in contact with the floor. That's it. So you're not lifting your head off the floor. If I was lifting my head off the floor, I was not doing what I should have done. That's it. And then stop pressing and just that's it. Let your head roll back so your forehead's on the ground. So when you press, your right shoulder lifts and your head rolls towards the right, but it doesn't lift off the ground. Good, that's nice. So you're just trying to make this connection between pressing into the right hand and the right shoulder lifting up and the head then rolling. Good, very nice. And so this again is a twisting movement for the upper back. We could swap our arms over. So the right arm now comes down by the side of your body and you're going to be pressing into your left hand. And see how it feels. And sometimes we have to play around a little bit with exactly where we have the hand to make it easiest to press into. Yeah. Sometimes it's further down and we sort of have our hand under our shoulder, but it is worth, if you're not finding it easy to press into your hand, it's worth sort of playing around with where it's positioned. Okay, and then try with both hands on the floor. So you're pressing into one hand and then the other, and you're rolling side to side across your forehead. That's very nice. So we feel one shoulder is lifting and then the other shoulder is lifting. So this is where we're really coming into a rotation movement in the upper back. Yeah, I know if I'm feeling tight in the upper back, this is really helpful for me. See a bit more snow coming down out there. Now, what I'd like you to do for a moment is just fold back into child pose, because I want us to do a bit more on our bellies, but I know not everyone is happy there for a really long time. So fold into child pose for a couple of breaths and just let your lower back have a lengthen out. That's nice. And again, this probably makes perfect sense to you, but if you want to look at me for a moment, I will try and do what I should do. I'm going to be pressing, doing just what you were doing, pressing, going from side to side. And then I'm going to press into both hands and come into a little cobra. And then I'm going to come back and go from side to side and do this 3 times, okay? So come down onto your belly. And I just find it so helpful because this cobra movement is not easy, but if I do the side to side movement a few times, rolling side to side, and then press into both hands and lift the head, it feels a lot easier. So when you come down after your cobra, you could just give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle and then come back to pressing, going from side to side, rolling across your forehead. That's it, just making sure. Now let's just check, if you're going into cobra, you don't want your hands, you want your elbows to be quite close to the sides of your body, yeah? So you don't want your hands too far out to the sides. So when we sink down coming to cobra, we are sort of gathering our elbows quite close to our sides. Yes, so I'm not sort of making, that's it, very nice. Good. So 3 times, rocking from side to side across your forehead. And then very nice, Nigel, sink in the center, sinking into both hands, coming up into your little cobra movement. Or it could be a bigger cobra movement. It really depends how it feels. And then from here, yes, you can go back into child pose, but from here, I was going to say that you can now roll onto your back. And then when you've arrived on your back, just see what you'd like to do. Yes, so exactly. So it might be when you arrive on your back that like you are doing, Rosie, folding your knees into your chest, or it might be that you're doing hand lying with your knees bent and your feet standing on the floor. Because often, and I probably say this a lot, often when we come from our back, our belly onto our back, it can feel very nice and our spine sort of settles into a comfortable place. Good. So just for another minute or so, do whatever you like on your back. And then I have got just a couple of little twisty things we're going to do. But actually, if you haven't done it so far, if you haven't folded your knees into your chest and then rocked from side to side across the back of your pelvis, then maybe do that, Nigel, unless that just seems too unpleasant today. Good, that's nice. Lovely. And then you're going to settle down and stand both feet on the floor. And I think first of all, just come back to what we did right at the beginning. You've got your knees bent, your feet standing on the floor. Let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. It's just, yeah, that's it. So just a few times so you can remind yourself of how that feels. And then what you're going to do is pause in the center and cross one knee over the other knee. So it's a bit like our balance, that's it, the third balance we did in that little cycle. Good. So you're going to rock now on your standing foot. If you want to bring your standing foot so it's a bit more centered, you could do. So then see, how does it feel to rock side to side with your legs crossed? That's nice. And you can keep the movement as small as you like or make it as big as is comfortable. So it's a slightly different feeling here. When we've crossed the legs, the pelvis and the legs are all moving much more as a sort of single unit. Yeah. So we might feel the movement more in our ribs. Good. That's very nice. Lovely. And whenever you like, you can cross your legs the other way and see how it feels to rock with the other leg on top. Good. Maybe what I'd like you to do from here is then pick your standing foot off the floor and fold both knees into your chest with your legs crossed. Yeah. And then we'll do the other side in a moment. So good. And so when you fold it in, what you could do is just have a good look at your legs so you can see which leg you've got on top. Because then what you're going to do in a moment is take your legs up to the ceiling, give them a shake out, and then cross them with the other leg on top and fold your knees back in towards your chest. I hope that's not too confusing. Well done at this point in the day. Very nice. That's it. Good. Lovely. And you can rock a little bit from side to side across the back of your pelvis. And then whenever you're ready, you can release both legs. You can take them up to the ceiling to shake them out, or you could lengthen them out on the floor and give them a roll, which would also be nice. And then it's time to just lie quietly. We're going to do a few more cycles of the buzzing breath. Make sure you are warm. So blankets, jumpers, socks. So our buzzing breath is a way of it helps to lengthen our out breath. It gives us this opportunity to really, I always feel, sort of iron out tension, whether it's bodily tension, whether it's, more internal tension. So when you're ready and settled, you're going to let a breath come in. Maybe just give yourself a cycle of breath or two before your next buzzing breath. So again, we'll let a breath come in and then the sort of long exhalation with the gentle buzzing sound. And then again, maybe a quiet cycle of breath or two. And with our last buzzing breath, really see if you can let your shoulders soften and rest on the ground. And feel this sense of this softening, ironing out tension with the buzzing sound. So let your breath come in. Lovely. We'll just have maybe a minute or so of lying quietly. You can let your attention settle with the sensations of the breath moving through your body. It's in a very sort of soft, relaxed way. Feeling the breath move through you, the expansion of the in-breath, the softening and emptying of the exhalation. So thank you, everyone. Take your time. Background.